we're going to get started. We'll call to order the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018. If you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Gore Follett, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Sarah.
Johnson.
I am here.
Klaus.
Here.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Gore Follett.
Here.
Mayor.
Here.
Lathrop.
Yes.
Crawford.
Here. We have approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of April 18th, 2018, our regular meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Johnson, supported by Commissioner Mayer. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now is our chance for first public comment. Sarah, will you read the rules, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address the meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding the specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson. Please be respectful and refrain from personal or political attacks.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for making copies for the board members.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Clifton Murray. I live at 2920 East Partridge Court, Traverse City. I was in the county jail last year, just about a year ago, and I've had so many concerns about my stay there that I filed a complaint with the Michigan Department of Corrections. I recently filed a FOIA to discover the results of that complaint to the county, and I discovered that it appears that the jail did not retain a copy of this document, that they had to reach back to the MDOC to get a copy of this document, that the response that was provided by Captain Ritter to Larry Abrams of the MDOC investigating this response was untruthful or intentionally deceitful. My experience was that when I was incarcerated, I spent 6 days in the drunk tank with as many as 13 individuals total in that tank, no less than 10 as I recall. There was no shower, there was no hot water, there was no soap, and there was very little opportunity to be taken out of the cell for a shower. I happened to be bunking next to an individual that claims to have been released from Munson with a MRSA virus on his body, and the cell was not cleaned for the 6 days I was there. I was denied a grievance on 3 occasions for my lack of a shower. I was refused a mop or a broom to clean the cell myself, and I dispute Captain Ritter's response that this jail cell has a shower. The shower, yes, is there, but it does not work. A bailiff in court yesterday confirmed that in his employment here, that shower has not worked, and inmates are taken out of the cell for a shower. I did not receive a response from the lieutenant that I left a message with today to be able to identify that bailiff, but he was in courtroom 2 at 1:30 yesterday. I think that these are all very serious allegations. They are not part of the target that Sunny has regarding mental health, but they are part of the bullseye of this problem over there. The unresponsiveness of the corrections officers, the unsanitary conditions, the inhumane and degrading conditions are unacceptable. So I've provided documents that go into my complaint before the MDOC. I asked for a Bible. Never was a Bible brought to me. I think that's callous behavior also. The lack of a mattress for senior citizens and people with documented medical conditions is unacceptable. I hope you guys will look into it and take what actions are necessary. I did speak with the prosecutor's office. I said, what official mechanisms are available in the county to complain about an untruthful response to a state investigation? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment at this time? Mr. LaPointe?
I don't know how to follow that one, and my comments aren't nearly as serious as are his comments, but I just have a couple of comments, and it pertains to the recent articles that have been published concerning the financial condition of the county. And I find it absolutely perplexing how we seem to go from pillar to post in terms of what is the financial status of the county. I mean, it was just a month ago we were sitting here saying we couldn't fund animal control to the tune of $180,000, and now we're finding liabilities that it says we thought they were $8 million, then it says, well, nope, it looks like they were $4 million. Nope, they're only $2.5 million. I mean, if things are that fluid, I don't know how you proceed to the next step, which is you're discussing how do we disperse these funds. Until these numbers settle down and you're absolutely positive of them, to proceed, in my mind, is absurd. We can't treat these numbers, if they are correct, as a trend. The trend has been a downward spiral in the pension deficit. It was the debt to the pension was at zero in 1990. 1990, we see a true trend to today where it's $54 million. The last time it was reported, it was 44.7% funded, which is abysmal. And to the public, that number probably doesn't sound like anything. What does that mean? Is that significant? Crawford County, they're funded at 104%. Benzie, 67%. Kalkaska, 72%. Leelanau, 83.9%. I mean, we've got a serious problem. So my recommendation hopefully would be, once you know these numbers are solid and they don't move for some time and you're very, very comfortable, then proceed. And I thought we were going to set up a committee that was to focus on how we're going to address the debt, what was the long-term plan, and how to go forward. I guess, in just looking at what's going on, we don't have a long-term plan. We just operate on a daily basis. And I saw the numbers in here on what caused the surprise in the excess, if you would. And all of these were well known months and months and months ago. None of these were a surprise. You know, the $500,000 that you were no longer going to spend on the Department of Veterans Affairs, that was done 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And you knew that was going to be a positive impact on the general budget. So, again, it almost seems like we're publishing something just to put some lipstick on the pig, to be honest with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? All good? Okay. We will move on to approval of the agenda. I do have one thing that we need to add under old unfinished business. We will need to discuss the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission application. There have been some changes. they need to bring that to our attention. We need to approve it once again, or not. We need to add that as A under old unfinished business. Is there anything else that needs to be added or
Move we
removed?
accept the agenda with the amendment.
I'll second that. Move to accept the agenda with the addition to 10A.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Mayer. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Move on to the consent calendar. Sarah, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. All information identified on the consent calendar can be viewed in its entirety at www.grandtraverse.org. A, receive and file. 1, Northwestern Regional Airport Commission minutes of April 3rd, 2018. B, approvals. 1, Public Service Recognition Week. 2, 2018 hauler licenses. 3, Information Technology Surplus Equipment Disposal Authorization. 4, Contract Extension Land Information Access Association. 5, Conservation District Ballot Language Change.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to be removed from the consent calendar to be discussed? Anyone from the public? Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Johnson, supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We don't have any special orders of business. There were no items removed from the consent calendar. On to departmental items. We have emergency management. Mr. Byrd?
Good evening, Craig Byrd, Emergency Management Coordinator. I know this made it in your packet, but this has been a nearly 3-year project request for the Emergency Operations Center. We currently don't have any reception except for hardwired radio that's in the back communication room. And we only have rudimentary 3G cell service that was put in with a residential system when the building was built that only handles up to 20 cell phone connections. So this grant project is to put what's termed a bidirectional antenna in the basement level of the building that will bring us radio coverage for portable radios, even the pagers they wear on their side, as well as 4G LTE service that'll handle up to 1,500 devices at once. It's all public safety grade. It took a long time to get through the state and federal approval process of this, but it finally came through. We solicited 3 quotes because there's only 3 companies in the area that do that type of work, and we've only received 2 back. I'm happy with the low bid. I've seen their work in Benzie County. It's professional, and it'll satisfy us just fine. Costs nothing out of general fund. It's 100% reimbursed by the federal government. So just asking for your approval for the $17,248 to have the BDA system installed.
I move that we approve his request for the EOC bidirectional amplifier project.
Okay.
Support.
Moved.
Okay.
Next time, Dan.
Okay.
Moved by Commissioner Mayer, supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Any discussion? Yes, Cheryl?
You want to put this in the basement of this building?
Of the Health Department building where the Emergency Operations Center and my office is.
Perfect. How much space will it take?
It's a little box that goes on the wall, and there'll be like 6 cones out of the ceiling that are the actual antenna.
I really didn't want to know that, did I?
You won't even know it's there.
Yeah.
But if you ever come there, your phone will work.
Awesome.
Already. Thank you.
Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Sunny, did you have a comment?
Maybe we put one of those cones in my office, because my cell phone doesn't work in there either.
Well,
Well, you got $17,000, you can get one.
Thank you.
thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Berger.
Greg.
We'll move on to finance. We have grounds maintenance worker for facilities management.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Johnson. Who's Dean? Nate?
And we have Joe here as well, but
Okay.
we really feel this is a needed position to help with our grounds and maintenance, and we're kind of getting a late start on cleanup at the Civic Center. there are funds within the facilities budget to cover this, and we would ask for your consideration on this request.
Any questions, Tom?
Yeah, so it's year-round, full-time?
But it's a half.
It's a half?
It's a .5 FTE.
Okay.
Ultimately, to be totally honest, we would like to include this in the 2019 budget request, but that's a different
Okay.
discussion. And
I get it.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to the Blair Township water bonds.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Johnson, supported by Commissioner Gorfulet. Who's going to
You know,
take
we
this
read our
one?
packets, so.
I know.
Well, and this is
I know
not-
we
This
do.
is the normal,
Does anybody have any questions
The
on it?
refinancing of these
Okay.
bonds overall will save the community money.
This is
This
an
is a-
add-on to a bond issue that you approved in 2017.
Right.
But the main reason that it comes back to you is your credit rating. You save your township residents a lot of money by having this bond issued by the county through your Board of Public Works.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Roll call, please.
Oh, we have to, why do we have to do a roll call?
Because he said so.
Gotcha. Thank you, Matt.
catching that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Klaus?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Gorfulet?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yep.
Johnson?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes. Moving on, Mr. Bott, you have some suggestions for us for the audit committee,
Well,
or,
not really.
okay,
Well, ultimately, the board has to approve the claims, the invoices against the county. That's state law, whether it's a good current law, we don't want to go there. But I believe you had discussed this previously, and at the time, before you reinstated your audit committee, you were presented with a list of the vendors and the amounts that were paid, and that would be my recommendation. We still need to provide some type of summary information to the board that ultimately you will approve. So I guess that's why I phrased it the way that it's in the motion. I mean, I'm not sure what your comfort level is. We're going to continue to pay invoices and claims as we have. Those payments are always in accordance with the budget that you adopt, but there is that requirement for the board ultimately to approve, the payment of those bills or invoices. So with that, I guess that would be my recommendation, that we go back to what you were doing just prior to reinstating your audit committee. We would present you with your last meeting of the month. Here's the invoices or the totals that were paid to the vendors, and then we can always provide additional detail, all of the invoices if you want. But so with that, I guess I'm open for
Clarification.
okay, yes,
So
Cheryl?
if we go back to where we get the listing of all of the checks that were written, right now, I'm on the audit committee, and probably at least half of what we review has already been paid. So under the new system, which is a return of the old system, we would be getting them after they had all already been paid. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
These would be coming to you after we have made the payments, and that's a very good point that you raise. We have not had any issue with our auditors on that. There are a lot of governments, not just counties, that do that, and the thought process there is that they understand how business has changed over time. One of the statutes, I believe, has been on the books since 1909 regarding the authorization for your board or your legislative body to approve. So this goes back a long time. Things have changed. You look at court payments or restitutions that come to the county. There's timing. You have to pay, your utility invoices have to be paid on time. So the statutes don't necessarily work. So what's been acceptable is that approval after the fact, but there is the requirement that the board, the legislative body, see those payments. And I think the thing to do would be to go back to the Deputy Finance Director. Sherry was showing me what you had done before. I really like that. You're getting a list of all of the payments that were made, and that would be my recommendation, that we present you with that detail, and then ultimately, we would ask for your approval at the end of the month.
Sonny?
Well, I said on the audit committee before we made the change the last time to eliminate the audit committee, I think the idea, what we ran into when we eliminated the audit committee before, was simply, the same discussion that we're having now. A lot of what we spend an hour and a half going through invoices is each individual who served on a jury, how much their check was and how much their mileage was. Each time one of the facilities persons went to Deweese Hardware or Ace Hardware and picked up 2 flashlight batteries, we have to review that invoice. I think those types of things, I don't know, and I made the argument before, I thought that was a pretty poor waste of my time, to sit there and go through those. Now, obviously, if we're issuing into a contract or we're making a major purchase, that's going to come to this board anyway. The items that are reviewed every other week by the audit committee are 99% budgeted amounts that are in those individual department budgets. We've approved those department budgets. We approved the supplies for all of these departments, and to sit there and read through 50 jurors that got checks and 20 defense attorneys that got paid is kind of a waste of my time. I have no problem reviewing purchases that are important, and I believe that anything that goes out for bids and is a non-budgeted item will continue to come to this board. But other than that, the annual or the monthly review of what was paid, I think, is more than adequate. To just come in here every other Monday night for an hour and a half or 2 hours to review a stack of invoices that's this high is kind of a waste of, a lot of good resources, I believe. Not only is it Cheryl and Carol and I that come to do that, but Sherry spends all that time. She puts all that time putting it in a packet for us and putting them all in separate little categories and files, and we've got the computer printout, and then we have the individual invoices. If you want to go down through, I rarely go through the invoices anymore. I go down the computer printout and see who got paid. But I just think there's a lot more important things for county commissioners to do than read invoices for who got paid jury money.
Okay, Dan?
I don't know if it's been said or not, but with that, if we did this, do we then eliminate the...
Audit committee.
Yeah, we'd eliminate it. Okay, just want to know.
Sonny?
One other piece, when we talked about reinstating the audit committee, 6 months ago, a year ago, we talked about having some flexibility, and when I volunteered to sit on that committee, I thought there was some flexibility. Well, then along comes the idea that because it was a meeting of commissioners and it had to do with decisions, it become an open meetings thing. So then it had to be done at a fixed time. When we talked about reinstating it, I was under the understanding that, they would be available and I could, come in after my day of work or whatever and review those and sign off. But now all of a sudden I have a structure. I have to be here at 4 o'clock on Monday to do it. That becomes very difficult for me also. I think what ended up in the reinstatement became a lot more complicated than what we had talked about when we talked about reinstating it.
Yes, Cheryl?
I guess I would be comfortable if there are 3 commissioners who feel that we need the audit committee and they would like to volunteer to take over that duty, then I would say let's keep doing it that way. After having put in my 7 months, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't think it's necessary. I think that I do want to get the list of everything. we talked once about, anything over 5,000 or whatever. No, I want to see it all, because the challenge is that there's a lot of people who can be getting paid $1,500 a month, and after a while you start thinking, well, why is that person getting $1,500 every month? Because after a few months, that starts to add up to some money. So, and it isn't even that there's any malfeasance or anything else, it's just, I think it makes you better at your job if you know where the money's going.
I actually had more questions when we had the lists to look at, because I noticed that, why is this one person getting this, and this person got paid last month too, and is this a contract? What is this? It was actually easier to see maybe a trend or a pattern or something like that in that than it was in the stacks and stacks of going through them. So what is, Tom?
Well, I would put it out there that it could be a committee of just 2 instead of 3, if there's 2 people that want to do it.
But they have to do it.
Has to be 3.
It has to be 2.
Yeah.
So if you're sick, you're out of town, it has to be done. It's kind of like...
Even with 3, it was tricky sometimes to get all 3 of us to do it. Yes, Dan?
It was made a couple weeks ago, last year, I didn't belong here.
If you do that, does that mean we're not going to review it as a whole board?
No.
He's concerned about the legality, so you're talking about doing
once a
both
month.
happening?
Once
No.
a month.
We're talking about if it is so moved, we would eliminate the audit committee
Right.
meeting separately, and the list that we were getting last summer or so, the list that we were getting of the vendors and how much they got paid every month, that would come to the full board in one of our packets, and we would approve it at that point.
So instead of looking at all of the bills and all of the statements like we're doing in the audit committee, you would simply get a list that would say, Joe Blow, 200,000, Sammy
We
Smith,
probably did it that way,
10,000.
what, 3 years, Dean?
Yeah.
Which is
3
what
years, 4
we're
years?
doing.
Are you comfortable with that?
I am.
think more like
We only did that
We
at
got
the
it all the way
beginning.
down to like
Probably about a
$7,
year.
$2.
It was at the beginning of 2017. We eliminated the audit
We did it like that for
committee
a while, didn't we?
for all
Yes.
of 2000, almost all of 2017.
Yep.
We put it back in late fall, the audit committee, and started looking at things, and, yeah. So how do we want to go?
I would move that we eliminate the audit committee as a formal committee and instead have the finance department provide us with a monthly listing of all of the bills that have been paid.
Support.
Okay, moved
Ron can support.
by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Any further discussion?
The only thing I would say is that obviously if we decide that that is not working for us, we can always reinstitute
We always have the
audit
option to go
committee.
back.
Well, and anytime we have, any of us have any questions over that list, I think it's, like Carol said, I think sometimes I had more questions when I was reading the list than actually sitting there going through page by page trying to look at invoices. Because all of a sudden it become very obvious that a particular vendor was getting paid a significant amount of money.
Tom?
What was the dollar amount we had the last time we presented the list to everybody at one of these meetings? Is everything over 1,000?
Over $1,000
Yeah.
total to, yeah.
Because then the list wouldn't be as long, so.
Well, I
I
think
would just
Cheryl's
as soon
point of,
see it all.
yeah,
I-
by vendor.
If it's not that much more
In my
cumbersome.
opinion, you need to see the list, you have to approve all claims.
Yes.
I mean, we could summarize the claims and give you a total for claims under, but I would not recommend that. I mean, I don't know how long the list will be, but
The printout can just as easily list right down to the $5 invoice. That's not a problem.
yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We will move on to administration, potential utilization of fund balance. Nate?
Yes, good evening. Prior to the April 4th meeting, Chris, Dean, and I spent a lot of time looking through reports and different situations that we were in, and presented to you on April 4th kind of an overall financial history as of 2017, the close of the year. So this board asked that we present to you tonight some recommendations. And in your packet, you have a memo crafted by us, and there are essentially 5 recommendations in that memo. We believe that you should continue to pay down the pension. You should continue to pay down the OPEB. You should consider the costs that are going to be associated with the jail That being, there's going to be a consultant hired at some point, and this board has expressed interest in addressing some of the mental health concerns within the jail. And we also believe you should invest in the employees at some level. And lastly, we think that you should consider amending your policy to take the fund balance to 20% of the overall budget. So prepared a brief PowerPoint this evening to kind of illustrate our thoughts. Number one, basically speaking, our revenues are up, our expenses are down. There's a lot of reasons for this. Number one is the Headley Proposal A. We talked about that during the equalization report by Mr. Baker. He showed that there's very good news on that front. In fact, there's a $600,000 revenue that we did not anticipate due to tax increase. New construction means higher tax value. Again, Mr. Baker's report demonstrates that there's been a long history, not a long history, but a history of increases over the last 5-6 years. And we are currently at the 5.3. I can't read that. I can't read that. It's too small. My apologies. It's growing. We need to do something like that. If a 47-year-old can't read that, I'm not sure.
I can read it, 5.1 billion.
Regardless, it's increasing, and it increases on an annual basis. And we believe by the way the community is growing, we expect that to continue to grow. 5-year tax revenue, again, it shows a consistent upward growth. We're showing a 5-year pattern here, up to more than $24 million. Again, a solid increase. General fund balance, you are slightly lower this year than last year because this board made some decisions last year to make some payments out of the fund balance. But what we want to talk about in terms of fund balance is the way the fund balance is changing. In 2016, you had a restricted, I'm going to have to use mine, I can't read that. Your restricted funds were $4.8 million. This year, your restricted funds are $3.4 million. So that is a net savings of $1.4 million over the last year in the amount of restricted funds. So that's getting much better.
And that's because?
Because Dean can explain it much better, but we are pulling back cash from other sources. Go ahead.
The restricted component is primarily loans or advances that you've made to other funds. We advanced money to the septic treatment facility to help the 5 townships refinance part of that debt. And basically, we also have some outstanding loans with one of our townships. We helped a township pay off some of their debt early. And we also have internally some long-term advances to a couple of our funds. Basically, what's happening from 2016 to 2017, we are receiving payments back, and we will continue to receive payments back. And that's part of what we will talk about a little later on here about how we go or increase our 15% minimum fund balance to 20%. Based on what's just happening here with those long-term advances being repaid to the county general fund.
Thank you.
The expenses are less and less each year. We spent less than was budgeted last year. Responsible management by department directors and elected officials has led us to a healthy return on what was budgeted. The dam removal project didn't cost what we expected it to cost. And central dispatch surcharge essentially paid for the department. Here's an example of what was budgeted in 2016 for the dams project. We didn't spend any money at all on removal of the dams project. Other post-employment benefits, the OPEB cost, you heard earlier, has been a moving target as late as last Friday at 5 o'clock. We received the valuation showing that our OPEB liability is currently at $2.5 million. That has been touted to be as high as $8 million. That's changed dramatically.
Why?
There are reasons that it's changed dramatically.
Why?
The 80-20 mandate that the employees pay 20% of their health cost, as well as changes in assumptions and the experience. And Dean can explain that. He knows that much better than I do, but that is essentially what caused that to change. Dr.
I think, wasn't it that when they looked at people retiring, they used to retire at a much earlier age, and now they're retiring 10 years later, and that provides a lot less exposure. That was a big component of it, wasn't it?
That's correct, Dean?
Yeah.
That is correct. The largest component of the reduction in the liability was the experience. We have more experience where this valuation is 2 years, almost 3 years later than the last one. And looking at the individuals that have the benefit, we had used, and I don't come up with these assumptions, but we were using an average retirement age of 53. In the new valuation, looking at actual experience, we have learned that in most cases, that average retirement age is 62 or 63, and yes, so it's a much shorter period that they're actually eligible for that retiree benefit.
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
Does MERS provide these numbers?
No, this valuation was done by Watkins Ross. They're actuaries, they're not associated with MERS. This is your retiree health liability. It's separate from your pension.
Are they the ones who provided the $7.5 million valuation that we've been operating under?
No, this is a different firm.
Who did that?
Data analytics, I believe, but I should check that to be sure. I don't know.
I mean, you know, I think we just have to kind of put it out there. I mean, it's
I believe data analytics was...
Operating under, you know, we're making decisions based on the information that we're provided. And when a year and a half ago, we were told we had a $4.4 million hole in our general fund budget, okay? And then we found out that we actually had a multi-million-dollar surplus, okay? The confidence that people have in the leadership becomes pretty jaded when the numbers are all over the place, and it's really difficult for us to justify and explain. So, you know, 6 months ago, we had a $7.5 million OPEB liability, and today we have a $2.5 million liability. That's tough, guys.
Yes.
I mean, it's great news, if true, okay, but a skeptic by nature, when it comes to things like this, you know, it's tough not to be skeptical.
Are these the numbers that are submitted to the state to show what our level of
Yes.
of funding is? Okay.
Yes.
We will use the Watkins Ross actuarial valuation to complete our 2017 audit. And yes, this will be the basis for our reporting to the state. This is a reputable firm. There are requirements that you do these valuations on a regular basis. With this, it would be every 2 years. Your pension valuation is done every year, simply for things change.
Right.
And yes, it's a significant change, but we work very closely with the actuary on making sure they knew all of the employees and the retirees, and they're the ones looking at that experience to see, you know, they came up with that. We had nothing to do with this.
But they hadn't looked in 3 years.
That's correct.
So that was a mistake.
Well, in large part, the 80-20 decision wasn't decided at that point. That was decided
PA
after that.
152 made a significant difference in the fact that when it mandates that all employees are responsible to pay 20%.
That was 2 years ago.
Right.
Well, it began in 17 is when it was implemented.
But a year and a half.
One of the other things that really made a big difference here was the fact that with the state requirement to be 40% funded with this liability, the actuary can, and we had discussions about what we had. We do have money with MERS, $250,000, and that requirement to be funded at 40% allowed the actuary to use a long-term discount rate, which did lower the liability from the $4 million number that we thought we had Friday afternoon to the $2.5 million number. And if we would have waited maybe a couple of hours to send out the report, you would have had the 2.5. I mean, we were working on this right up until 5 o'clock last Friday.
Please don't think I'm being critical.
Oh, no,
of you.
I don't.
I'm just saying, the skepticism that you hear from the public is the same skepticism we're hearing from the public,
Sure.
only on a much greater volume, because
Well,
it's-
I don't want to get too off track. We want to stay on this, but it would be my recommendation that we actually look at this valuation every year, like we do with the
I would
pension.
support that.
Tom, did you have a comment?
So what was the date of the old evaluation? It was 2016 or 2015?
It was provided to the county in November of 2015.
Okay.
So to Commissioner Johnson's point, 40%, the amount needed in terms of a payment right now to get to 40% is just over $1 million.
Does that include the money we have with MERS, or?
That is the payment that would be required to get to 40%. You
Okay.
actually have, I think, $550 budgeted, $250 from last year and $300 for this year in terms of an allocation. So that number is actually less in terms of what you would have to find.
So we'd be the $1 million less the 550 that we've already set aside?
That's correct,
So we need $500,000.
roughly.
Okay.
In terms of the pension obligation, our current pension obligation is in fact $95 million estimated. These are all, of course, determined by what's happening in the market. I think we all understand that. The 60% funded mandate is $57 million. Again, that's an estimated number. And we currently have $55,600,000 in the MERS right now working for us. To get to 60%, we need a $1.6 million payment.
What basis is this on? Is this through all of 16, this estimate, or have those numbers?
This is through 17.
Okay.
Including the
Yeah,
5.9
okay.
this year, including the $5.9 million payment we made early this year.
Okay.
That is that 55,600 number. So that puts us right about 58%. And we have had conversations with the state a little, and they aren't all that concerned about that. But I think it's important that you consider going to the 60% and perhaps beyond that.
I mean, I think we should put every little bit we can when we have it extra to put in there, so.
So can I make a comment in
Sure.
regards to the comments that were made earlier? So we are not in the 40s funded.
No.
We have given, I added it up, over $16 million
Yes.
in the past 12 calendar months. And so as far as, we do have a long-term plan. We are working the long-term plan of the $5.9 million per year and discussing adding to that, even doing better.
As much time as we spent on this thing in the last few years, I'm
Exactly.
kind of surprised that.
And we did have a board that advised us, and that is what came out of that, is the $5.9 million agreement with MERS. So we do have a plan, and we are working the plan, and we are putting extra
And it's
into the
working.
plan.
And it's
it is working, because we were in the low 40s, and now we can see that we are very close to the 60% mark, nowhere near the least funded in the state at all.
That is correct.
So, and these are true numbers. These numbers came from MERS, correct? That's our MERS valuation
No,
for
no,
17.
no, it's not.
No.
That
Where did this
valuation-
one come
That
from?
valuation won't come until June,
Okay,
but these are the best estimates we have to date.
okay.
It's a moving target again.
It is, but I don't think it's moving that far. Yes, Tom?
Well, we're in the midst of our annual audit right now.
Yes.
So one of the first thoughts I have is that we wait until the audit is complete to make a final decision on how to spend a surplus in the general fund. I'm also concerned that I want to see the report from MERS that shows that we're where we believe we're at, so that we're on the same page, and that will come till June. In the meantime, I think we can talk about a list and prioritize it as to what should be done with the money, and not be in a hurry.
Oh, I agree. Dan?
I agree, we should pay down our debt. Part of the plan that got us here in this good condition included a pension advisory board, and this board passed that we should have that. 3 of those people resigned. We need to reappoint those 3. It'd have been nice if we'd had that board. They could help us now.
Good.
Make those decisions. And the other thing is, in that plan was the irrevocable trust.
I think that's been forgotten.
We have an irrevocable trust.
Yeah, but, well, no, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
No.
We
we've
have-
got-
we
we've got
opened the
a draft written up.
And we opened it,
And we funded it.
and if we fund it, and if we decide to fund the OPEB, this is how we would do it, correct?
You've set up two trusts. You set up an OPEB trust, which you did fund to the tune of $250,000.
All right?
You passed a resolution authorizing the creation of an irrevocable trust for the MERS liability. A draft is put together. I believe that draft is about 95% done. So we could easily finish that draft with the help of outside counsel and present it to the board in the near future.
Okay, so that's my point, is I want to see that, those two
Okay.
things still happen.
Okay.
Because there is going to be, because I've experienced so many times in my life, I'm in the market, there's going to be a downturn. And when that happens, I like to have some funds set aside to help us through that. So I think that would protect us. Now, in the past, without none of us are going to be here forever, and what happens to this retirement fund needs to be looked at and reported to the employees and to us and to the citizens. That's why it's so important to get that pension advisory board alive again.
Okay. Bob and then Tom.
What was missing in the past and what's here now is this has to be in the forefront now. So every year, will be looked at. So,
But that board will guarantee that.
yeah, I guess I don't have strong feelings either way about a pension board or not, because again, I think now that the board has to make decisions on this every year. The MERS evaluation will be looked at every year. Where are we in that? If we have extra money, then they can look and put it in there.
This board passed a motion that we have a pension advisory committee, and so if you want to reverse that, you can make that motion. But otherwise, I think we should follow through with it.
Not this board, but the Board of Commissioners at the time did.
Yeah.
I don't think this Board of Commissioners
It wasn't this
passed a
board with
motion
this-
to have a pension
Okay,
advisory board.
but it was passed.
But it was
The
created in
prior
the
board
past.
did.
It did.
Right.
Bad board.
But I,
Prior board, I see.
Prior.
okay,
I'm in the middle.
easy
I got
now.
nothing.
I would bring to your attention, though, that if we have that, I believe they called it the Pension Stabilization Trust, so that we could draw off of it if we couldn't make our $5.9 million payment, that kind of thing. That does not add into the total funding percentage.
That's correct.
So that wouldn't help us get to the 60.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't do the 61st, but I
Right.
think it's like,
Okay.
do the one thing and don't let the other thing go undone.
No,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
you don't add those two together, the MERS big pot and then the stabilization
Yeah.
fund, they don't add together to get your funding balance, your percentage.
They have to
It is
actually
separate.
have the money to count it,
They
is what it
do.
amounts to. To put
They
it in
do, and the
plain
Treasury
language.
only considers what MERS actually possesses on our behalf
Right.
as the
Yeah.
percentage.
I just want to, that was part of the plan.
It is.
And the plan's been working.
Mm-hmm.
I think these are tools that we can use to protect ourselves and the
Okay.
citizens.
Okay?
Okay.
Tom?
Well, the pension advisory group its purpose was to decide what to do, and we came up with a plan, and I think that it'll take a couple of years to know whether the plan actually works, because we haven't been in the plan that long. We've been in the plan, a year or less? So I think it's going to take longer than this amount of time to know whether the plan is working or not. I wouldn't say it's working for sure. It seems to be working. But you have to stick with it to find out whether it's going to work, so you have to make that commitment to follow through. 2-3 years maybe. If you put $1 into the trust that doesn't count for MERS, it's not going to make as much money sitting there as it is if it's just put into MERS. Average year at MERS is going to pay a higher yield than in the trust account. Because the trust account has limitations on what you can invest it in. That's why I say, at this point, I wouldn't put any money in it, because for every dollar that I would put there, I'd just soon put it into MERS, even if we exceed the 60%. I mean, exceeding the 60% should be a goal.
Dan?
I feel it's kind of like
And then
having,
Sunny.
making house payment. You're making a mortgage payment, and you could make 5 payments ahead. But if for a couple months, you can't make your payments, you lose your house. See my point? That you have to have some money set aside to make these payments. You make extra payments to MERS, that doesn't lower your monthly payment. And then if we run into a situation where, because of interest rates, we now owe MERS more money, we should have money set aside for that.
Okay.
That's my point.
Yep.
I agree, it doesn't pay as much, but neither does your savings account.
Right.
Okay.
Sonny?
Well, I certainly acknowledge all the efforts that this board and the county and administration have done over the last couple of years, trying to get MERS to the table and creating a plan. I think we've created a plan. I think it's a good plan. Unfortunately, I still personally not sure I trust MERS. You know, they're still projecting for me that we're going to see a 7.75% return on their investments. And having spent last night reading my summary for the first quarter of 2018 from MERS, they lost money in the fourth quarter of 2017, and they lost money in the first quarter of 2018 out of my account. You know, so how do I read that and at the same time believe that they are truthful when they tell me they're going to get 7.75%? Well, maybe they're getting 7.75% of the return on the pool, but they cost me over $1,000 in the last 2 quarters out of the money that I have invested.
They like that word smoothing.
Yeah, that 10-year smoothing thing. But the bottom line is, I still have a lot of reservations. One of the things that we can also remember is this board made a commitment to, if we sell properties, those monies go directly to the pension debt. I was scheduled last week, and then it was canceled to sign the closing documents with Blaine Farm and Fleet for the property on Rennie School Road in US 31 South. The proceeds to that, the profit per se to that, even after all of the debt is paid, is going to be somewhere in the $355,000. I also, on behalf of this board and the land bank, signed last week the purchase agreement with another developer for the 33 acres immediately behind the frontage property on US 31. The proceeds for that property, less the realtor commission, and I'm not sure exactly what that's going to be, but the purchase price is $300,000. So there's approximately $650,000 coming to the county from the sale of those 2 parcels of property. That money, I believe, is earmarked directly to the pension fund based on previous decisions by this board. So all of a sudden, we take the $500,000 that we're saying we already have set aside, and we add another $650,000. We've got that $1.3 million we got to come up with.
Yeah, I'll say the board did pass a resolution about a year ago saying sale of county-owned property would go to pay the pension debt. Now, I would ask the board to look at that policy because technically this is land bank property. And I know it's a technicality, and I know Sonny's sighing at me, but still.
No, you're fine.
Still, I think it might be a good idea to take a look at that resolution. I do think it's a good idea to use the proceeds, pay down the debt. One thing you might want to look at, should it be OPEB? Should it be pensions? Should it be both? Again, I think it's a good idea just to get that policy out, look at it, and see if it needs to be changed.
I want to ask Chris a question.
Okay.
In order to have that land bank proceeds go to pension debt, do we need to make a motion of some sort to amend that?
I would recommend you do. I would recommend you do, just because you could look at that resolution that set up that policy as really talking about county-owned property. Because keep in mind, the land bank is a separate authority.
So we have to redefine county-owned property and include land bank, right?
Yes. I would, do you really need to do that? Could you get away with just saying, look, we're going to take this money, we're going to put it to MERS? You probably could, but I think for the sake of clarity, as well as guiding future board decisions.
I think the intent was any properties that we sold would go there. So I think the board needs to decide, make a motion on it, but if we do, can you write up a motion that would do that?
Absolutely.
Can we do that for May 16th?
I think when we in fact have the money in hand, we can certainly address that, once that purchaser, once that closing document is signed, and Heidi Shippi, our county treasurer, in fact has the check in hand, then we will direct where that money is deposited.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Can we talk about the jail costs?
So this board, through the establishment of the Jail Ad Hoc Committee, has kind of indicated that there is an interest in addressing needs at the jail. And specifically, there's going to be a jail consultant that's going to be needed to be hired. And there's going to be a submission of proposals for mental health services to the Jail Ad Hoc Committee that is going to have to be addressed. And I know that there are costs associated with that. We don't know what those costs are yet, but you should keep that in the back of your mind. We could talk rough numbers, but I don't think that's appropriate. Just something out there for you to keep in mind and consider. There are going to be costs associated with moving forward with the jail.
Okay. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, as a member of the Jail Ad Hoc, I'm prepared to spend more money on mental health services, but we're waiting till our next meeting, which is what, the 15th, I think? 15th, yes, where Community Mental Health and the other service company are going to present us with proposals, I believe. I think at that time we should even consider looking out beyond those two firms if we're satisfied or not sure, and seeing what other companies are offering services rather than just look at two. So, because I don't know how many other companies there are to go to, but two may, just on the surface of it, may not be enough for me to make a final decision, so.
Yeah, I think we've got to be careful on this board of saying, all right, we've got this pot of money, let's add costs that are going to continue into future budget
Exactly.
years. We need to look at a one-time cost to hire a consultant about building a new jail, but if we're looking at increasing mental health, that's forever, well, not forever, but a continual thing. So you got to be careful with this because it'll quickly get away from you, and then we'll be back to where
Amen.
Yes.
Yeah.
One-time money should only go to one-time thing.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. We're starting to come out of this, we don't want to go back into it.
Not that the rest of that's not important,
It
but I
is.
just think we got to keep focused on what are we trying to do.
Yes. Okay. Invest in employees?
So there is a group of employees that have not received any type of wage increase in several years. As we've talked earlier, the 80/20 was brought last year and is in full effect now. And it's just something that you should consider. You should consider an investment in the employees. Positive things are happening, good things are happening with your employees, and they're providing a very great service. And a good service provider is a service provider that's been here for a while and knows how to do it. And we would like to encourage the retention of employees, and we would like you to consider options to that end.
Options include wellness and employee recognition and other
Yeah.
things that add, small things that actually add to the morale of employees and help employees feel valued. That's
Yeah.
important.
I understand that
That's-
newsletter.
That's
bringing it
really
back
popular.
It helped, yeah. So
Isn't
that's
that, and
very
if anybody
cool.
has any additions to the newsletter, anything you want to say or put out there?
Newsletter doesn't
Yeah.
put groceries on the table.
I was just going
Well,
to say, those are
Like I
those
said,
are really nice.
it's small things that initially do make a small difference, okay? But until we can talk about, bigger changes that do make a difference in their pocketbook.
Well, that's what we're supposed to be talking about
Exactly.
right
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
And so, I think that the most recent things that have been done are great. The newsletter, if you've read it, is good. I think it's a really great thing. Employee recognition is good. But, people who haven't gotten a raise in 2 to 3 years and are now paying 20% of the cost, they're at a net loss.
Right.
And I think that the discussion has to include elected officials as well, because the people who work for us, like the sheriff and the register of deeds and the clerk and others who are elected, they also have not received a raise for at least 3 years. One of the arguments is, oh, well, you know, they know what they were getting when they ran for the job, which is true.
I was
okay?
waiting for you to look at me when you said that.
Which is true.
No hitting.
But the point is that they're going to run again in 2 years, and so now would be the time so that would be known when people decide to run or not run. So whether we do that or not, I just think we need to have that be part of the conversation. Elected officials haven't had a raise any more than, I don't know what the total number of employees are that haven't gotten any increase in salary in the last 2 to 3 years, but
I don't either, but all of your non-contract,
at least 50%
And
of
312.
at least 50% of our employees are making 20% less than they made.
In
And that should be our
2014.
focus.
Well,
I mean,
In 2014.
Yes.
we've asked a lot of them over the last few years, 5, 10 years, and, you know, it's time to really start looking at that.
Tom?
Yeah, I'd like to know the amounts somehow, so that I can look them over as to how much people actually, how much less they're making because of the change in the insurance amount that they're getting deducted. But again, you know, maybe I'm becoming the more conservative person that I started as when I got the seat, but I'd like to slow things down again and wait until we get a county administrator. And it sure would be nice with an organization this size to actually have a director of HR. I believe that's essential. I'm not saying we have to wait for that, but I'm saying we should wait till we have a county administrator to make a decision like this, and include them in some of these other decisions too, because we're going to finish the process around the beginning of June, and I think we could tie the two things together. So every time we talk about changing something, that it's also the new county administrator is going to be part of that. So.
I agree with you, Tom.
I agree, too.
I think, yeah, this is discussion.
I don't think we're talking about doing this tonight. We're just talking in general.
No, and I think I made that clear even in the media, that it's discussion about what could be.
I think his point is very wise. I agree with
Yes.
that.
Oh, I agree that things, you know, we're just kind of fleshing out ideas and see what happens, and yes, decisions should wait. We are close
One thing I'll
to
add
having an
is,
administrator, so.
when the memo was drafted, you know, Nate chose his words carefully, and so please don't forget about a discussion about improving technology for employees, providing more training opportunities. If we are eventually going to get a child care center in the basement, what type of break room is going to be for employees? If we're really going to embrace the wellness initiative and try to provide healthier choices for employees, shouldn't there also be discussion about, for example, a workout room? I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but I would encourage the board to look at the whole picture for everything involving employment here at the county.
Well, that's where an HR person would really come in handy.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot one thing I was going to say, because I was
Okay.
getting a little worked up. But
Take a breath.
at Networks Northwest, they've actually they're embarking on a wage study in the 10 counties that are in Networks Northwest. And because we don't really compare to the other 10 counties, because our economy is a little larger, they're going to pick up a couple other counties in the state that are closer comparatives to us, maybe Midland County or someplace like that. And as far as I know, there's no charge, maybe some little charge, but I doubt it, because they're doing it for all the counties as part of a service that they just do. So I don't believe there is a charge to it, because I don't want to spend more money on another study about wages and salaries and things like that. I think we're all smart enough to figure it out. And our new county administrator sure can help, as well as everybody present here tonight. So.
Okay. Fund balance policy, 20%?
Yeah, 20%. I also like to have a savings account. I think it's very proper to spend down and get rid of your debt, but I do think you should have some sort of a rainy day fund. You should keep some money in reserve in case something does happen, and you need that cash immediately. And as Dean said earlier, as we pull back some of this cash from some of the things that we bonded and helped others pay for or loaned money out, as we pull that back, we were encouraging you to consider taking that and adding it to your fund balance from 15 to 20%. I think it's a wise thing to have a little bit of cash in hand in case you have a need.
Quite honestly, that'll be the toughest sell for me, because I'm expecting this year, just like you said with MERS, it's going to go down. So you may have some extra funds next year to say, look, let's try to get back up to where we were, because that's going to be that battle for the next 13 years left on this amortization or something, But again, it's a board and whatever the board decides. But to me, that'd be the tougher sell for right now, but, everything's on the table, and we'll look at everything.
And it's all fluid.
Yes.
I mean, MERS could come back and say, you're way above 60, you took a loss.
I
You
mean,
don't know.
quite frankly, for me, 70 or 75%'s my sweet spot in that anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to put 100% in there and get all that tied up. But,
Well,
And it'll only be that for a day.
I've been on that soapbox lots of times
Yeah.
about the fact that MERS idea of 100%, they're anticipating that every employee who ever worked for Grand Traverse County is going to retire at 57 years old, and they're going to draw benefits until they're 88.6 years old, and it's not going to happen. So the numbers that they use in the first place are wrong, but that's my opinion. And I've voiced it once
we've
before.
heard it.
I think we've heard that.
We have heard that, yes.
thank you, though, this was good work.
Anything else that you'd
Really
like us
some
to
numbers
know
to
or
us.
consider?
I would just like you to know that the three of us have spent a couple months looking at these numbers, and while the numbers do change and have changed, Dean has a pretty good idea of what's happening in terms of what's the accounting and finance within this entity. And he's been pretty spot on the entire time. So I'm very comfortable with the numbers that we have. There are some things we don't know. What's going to happen in June with the valuation, we believe we have a handle on that, but we just don't know for sure. So
How's the
I
audit
appreciate
coming?
the opportunity.
How's the audit coming?
The auditors will be back next week to wrap up. They finished up at the Road Commission last week. We're in pretty good shape. We will probably be looking at the first draft of the financial statements next week, but I'm not anticipating any surprises with any change in auditors. They have seen things done differently in different places. We've had some discussion with how we account for our building authority internally. We've had some discussion with how we're accounting for our brownfields. We may change things a little bit. Haven't really had a chance to discuss this with the treasurer, but there are some things that we can do with the brownfield that will help us regarding how those funds are just accounted for in the type of fund. But I'm very pleased with where we're at. We're not done yet, but I do hope to be very well, or very close to being done with field work by the end of next week.
Thank you.
Do
Bob?
we want to say as a group to bring us something in August or September? To at least
Well, we
put
don't
some-
know that this is going to be our administrative team in August or September.
Well, I don't want this just to all of a sudden die.
It's not going to die.
I think that's too far out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
not
thinking
gonna
if we
die.
get an administrator, we'll be lucky to have somebody in place in July 1st, is what I'm thinking. So then you're going to want them here for a month or month and a half.
And they'll be briefed on all of
Yeah,
this.
so,
Well, we're not going to do anything until after we get the audit, which
Yeah.
is June.
Right.
Yeah.
June what?
Well, your other
It's due
key,
June 30th.
the other key item, you do need the 2017 valuation from MERS, so we can really shore up where we're at with
That's
this.
the one in
And
June,
that's in June
right?
also.
Yeah, there are times when it comes in, late May, but I think June is a more reasonable expectation as to when we will have that. So your audit, MERS valuation, probably all, we don't want to give unreasonable, but it's June. It will be June before we have those final reports.
So sometime in August, it can come back to us, yeah.
Or July. Who
Possibly
knows? We'll
July.
just see how
Great
the
job,
numbers
you guys,
come.
though. A lot of
Thank you.
work went into
Yep.
this.
Thank you.
Appreciate
It's
it.
very complex, I know.
Yes, and they have been working on it constantly.
Well, and I
Tom?
know you'll keep
Yeah.
working on it.
I do appreciate it as well, even though I might sound different than that. But I surely do appreciate it, and I want those other reports first. But what I would say is that these are excellent questions for our candidates for county administrator. If they're watching this episode.
What would you do?
Yeah, they could be asked questions about what we discussed tonight and such.
I would hope
So,
that they would be watching.
There you go. There'll be a quiz.
Anything else? Any other suggestions or comments on this at all? Ron? Been very quiet. Okay. Just want to make sure.
Just listening.
Okay, fair enough. The sheriff would like to make public comment about this
Well,
particular thing, or?
yes, if now or at public comment?
If it's about this specific thing, yes.
Yes.
All right, come on up.
Good evening. Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff. As you know, the Sheriff's Office is a major part of the county's general fund budget. The last 8-year average of actual general fund expenses put the Sheriff's Office at 34.5% of the budget. That includes a $1 million increase in a $14 million budget for retirement costs since 2010, a 44% increase. We pay attention to the county's financial health. As presented, yes, there are many reasons why the county's finances are in such a good condition. However, the comment of moving employees to the 80/20 healthcare plan deserves some comment. The majority of county employees were forced into the 80/20 healthcare plan without any talks, discussions, negotiations, or pursuing gradually increasing their costs over 3 years because of the terrible financial position that the county was in. In an April 2016 comment by then Administrator Tom Menzel stated the county was in a dire financial condition. Judge Tom Power said it best: the debt is real, the crisis is not. A predicted 2017 $4.1 million budget deficit turned into a $2.8 million surplus at the end of 2016. That's a $7 million turnaround. Additionally, in 2016, the county found $5.6 million to pay down the pension debt. The projected $8 million OPEB liability is now only $2.5 million, a $5.5 million discrepancy. Where did these figures come from? The taxable value has increased 19% in the last 6 years, and the general fund balance has gone from $8 million to $12 million, a 50% increase. In September 2017, the County Board of Public Works sold Blair Township bonds, quote, at a hotly contested bond sale attracting 8 bidders, as reported by County Treasurer Heidi Sheppy. She stated the county's AA bond rating from Standard & Poor's was a major factor in the successful bond sale. Specifically, the illegal mandated increase in health care payments for some of our Sheriff's Office employees at appeal was twice, that's 2 times, rejected by labor judges. I take objection to the statement that efforts of prior county administrators over the last 3 years have helped reduce expenditures. This was a heavy-handed, jam-it-down-your-throat action that resulted in a black cloud hanging over the county employees. What about good financial management by department heads and elected officials in managing their budgets? But mostly, thank you, county employees. You have shouldered the load. The 80/20 copay for health insurance has reduced your pay. Former County Attorney Peter Cole has bragged that the $500,000 in annual savings that the 80/20 copay benefits the county. However, when you subtract his $300,000 bill over a 2-year period of time, what is the net savings? I'm a firm believer in the fact that a happy employee is a good employee. And I would submit to you that the loss of productivity by county employees when forced into a reduction in their pay was more than the $500,000 savings you can see on paper. Obviously, there are other factors that have played into the good financial condition of the county. I am pleased that these have been brought to light by a finance director who has the knowledge, skills, and experience to put this in front of this board. This positive information on the county finances did not occur overnight or with the flip of a switch. This has been ongoing for several years and should have been predicted or forecast, however, was not, either because those in the past responsible for this information either did not have the knowledge and experience in county finance to put it all together, or this was good news and we couldn't have any of that and was therefore suppressed. You have been presented with some very good options to move the county forward. Let's put the crisis behind us and move forward with honest discussion about Grand Traverse County's financial future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Okay, we are going to move on to old unfinished business. We have Michigan Indigent Defense Commission application review here.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
Chris?
there's a memo in front of you. This is a late edition. I do apologize for that, but we weren't able to meet with the MIDC representative until this morning, Marlon McCowan, who did inform us that our plan that was submitted to the state did have a couple errors. One was a math error that we fixed. The other was MIDC wanted to see more detail on the proposed renovations to the jail that would allow privacy between defense counsel and criminal defendants. So we've corrected those issues. We're going to resubmit the report. We just have a May 21st deadline that we're coming up to, so we wanted to inform the board and just get your approval on those changes and move forward and get the revised plan filed with the state.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Johnson. Any questions or comments, discussion? This is pretty straightforward. No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. There you go. We need a button. That was easy. Okay, now is our chance. Oh, we have upcoming meeting schedule. Nobody gave me anything on this, but Sarah has it. Gave it to Sarah so I wouldn't lose it in all my papers probably. Okay. Just as reminders, we have Wednesday, May 16th at 4 o'clock, a special meeting for our first round of interviews for County Administrator, beginning at 4 o'clock, right here. May 17th, also at 4 o'clock, for the rest of those first round interviews. And then our rescheduled Wednesday, May 23rd meeting, 5:30. That's going to be a regular meeting because we rescheduled from the Wednesday before. Okay? And I'll need 3 signatures in order to make that all rock solid. Start that off for me. Okay.
What about the dates for the final interviews? Want to say those two?
They're the proposed dates, which will probably be the final dates, are the evening of June 7th. I don't know the times or the place, but there would be a public forum and a meet and greet for our final candidates. Chance for the public and the employees and anybody else who'd like to come and meet them and talk to them. And then the final round of interviews would be on June 8th at 8 o'clock in the morning, right here. And I would anticipate maybe this time, maybe we would like to take a few days to think about things and come back, maybe have a special meeting to make the decision.
You think the public one will start in the late afternoon, or will it be in the evening?
I have the tentative time as 5 p.m.
5.
Okay.
Yeah, that's tentative at this moment.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here?
Here.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay? So everybody knows, set aside those times.
Well, I will probably not be here on May 23rd, just to give you a heads up, so.
Okay.
I got a meeting in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And I probably won't be back in time, so.
Okay. All right. Now is our chance for second public comment. Anybody left out there have any more public comment? No? We will move on. We have Commissioner Department reports. Sunny, and then Dan.
Just want to talk a little bit, we mentioned a couple times earlier about the jail ad hoc committee. As you may recall, when the committee was formed, Commissioner Mayer, myself, and Captain Ritter were appointed. We as a group have had some discussions about, who else should be a part of this ad hoc committee. I know Carol had mentioned former Judge Phil Rogers. At least in my mind, the goal of this is try not to get it too large. We've done the 21-member Blue Ribbon Committee for 15 months. I don't want to go through that again necessarily. I have reached out to former Judge Rogers and have talked to him. He has expressed an interest in helping in any way he can, whether it be as a formal member of the committee or how we wanted to do that. He's willing to help. I had a little discussion at Community Corrections meeting last night with Shri Shively, our Community Corrections Director. I said, maybe what I also would, if I was looking to add something, another dynamics, if you will, to this committee, maybe a defense attorney or a former inmate from the jail. And she was going to put together a list of possible recommendations for that. As we talk about the jail, we talk about the conditions, we talk about mental health, it kind of helps if we have that perspective. I personally haven't spent much time in there and really don't desire to spend a great deal of time in there, unfortunately. But we need to make sure that we're looking at various perspectives of the conditions in the jail. I reported to you at our last meeting, I believe, that Captain Ritter and I have worked on a boilerplate draft, if you will, for the jail consultant. We've taken out some stuff, he's taken out some stuff, I've taken out some stuff. I think we have that about ready. With your approval, I'm going to meet with Chris Forsythe to review that before we bring it to you for a final adoption of, this is what we're looking for. Basically, what we're trying to do is define the scope of work that we want to have done. I don't believe, at least in my mind, I don't believe it's our intention to have to go through that whole process over again. Yes, we need a new needs assessment to determine whether 300 beds is the right number today or whether it's 320. But we need a new needs assessment, but we don't have to go through the whole process. We simply know that we don't have an adequate jail. We need to deal with that. I met with Captain Ritter and the sheriff last week about the community mental health things to try to define what we're asking those people to bring to the presentation for our meeting on the 15th. We have included in that a goal, if you will, that every person booked in the Grand Traverse County Jail will have a mental health assessment within 24 hours of being booked. Now, some of those are going to be a 5-minute thing, some of them are going to be a lot more. But whether that person is a CMH patient or not, we believe that everyone needs to have some mental health assessment when they're booked into the jail and within now, if they booked in Friday night, it may not happen till Monday morning. But the goal that we're outlining to these people is that a mental health assessment will be done within 24 hours. We talked about, the idea we may need to add social workers in the jail. Many of these people just simply need someone to talk to, and we will figure out how the logistics of that works, but we may have to add something to that. Now, whether that is added as a separate contract, one of the things is the idea that we already have a contract, as everyone knows, with CCS to provide medical and mental health services in the jail. They, in turn, have a contract with Dr. Conlon to provide services in our jail. I had some conversation with Dr. Conlon about expanding her services, which she seems to be interested in. Because she is currently under contract with CCS, possibly it's cleaner for Grand Traverse County to expand our contract with CCS and let her contract be expanded with them, rather than have a separate contract with this one and a separate contract with that, because then if something goes wrong, you always get this finger pointing this way. If we can figure out a way that we expand our contract with CCS and they expand the amount of mental health services that are available in the jail, I think that's a win-win for us. But all of those items are going to come with some sort of a cost, and I don't have any idea what that number is going to be. Which the goals that we're putting out there as part of this product, or as part of this package, is that every prisoner will have a mental health assessment, and there will be expanded interaction with every prisoner in the jail, and medications will be taken care of, and there will be follow-up for medications. I think that's one of the pieces that we're kind of dropping in right now, is whether or not the medications are being administered, if they're being administered properly, and whether we're getting the appropriate follow-up. And the medical contract is probably the place to deal with that. We'll see what comes back. You know, my goal, for what it's worth, and nobody's going to be surprised in the room by that, my goal is that CMH be responsible to do the assessments.
Yep.
That should be part of that $682,000 we pay them a year. I'm willing to expand medical services, but I believe the assessments are their responsibility.
Okay.
And we will keep you posted. I'm sure as everyone knows, I've been kind of in and out the last couple of weeks, but I think we're getting now to where I know that Todd has met with all three providers, and I have spoken with Dr. Conlon. She happened to come to my office and talk to me one day, so I think we're on the right move, and I'm very excited to see what we hear on the 15th.
Sonny, is with community mental health, is Wexford County, they're on that same, they're taken care of by?
Yes.
So has anybody reached out to Wexford County, Little County?
All of the counties are having the same issue with the mental health issues in their jail. They're all having the reduced response, reduced hours. Yes. 10 years.
Doing? The same.
They're struggling through with not an adequate amount of service, or else they're trying to find money to pay for it out of their other budgets. The long and the short of it is, 10 years ago, community mental health had 80 hours of dedicated service in the Grand Traverse County Jail. Right. At the time that the enabling documents were signed. Now we're lucky if we're getting 8 to 10 hours. But we're still paying the same $682,000.
Me?
Dan.
Okay. Old Mission Peninsula, commonly called, way out there, it's commonly called Village of Old Mission, has had some flooding issues. And a lot of, a good number of people have been very affected by it. We need to upgrade the drain was put in 1987, and really not a lot of attention paid to it in terms of maintaining it. And it has been functioning quite good, but recently with different changes in the water, we're having a lot of flooding now. And I want to report that the drain commissioner was right on top of that, and so was the road commissioner, the road commission, and myself. I went out there and I got a map of the drains and looked at the drains and consulted with quite a bit of consultation with the people that have been impacted. Turns out the answer is complex. It isn't just as simple as digging out the old drains, because a lot has changed. So I just want the community to know that we're on top of it. Drain Commissioner's on top of it, and I'm on top of it, and Chris has been working with us. So we're doing our best to address the needs of those citizens.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl?
The Regional Forensic Pathology Facility Ad Hoc Committee met. I know that's a mouthful, but I don't like saying the morgue committee, so we're going to call ourselves the Regional Forensic Pathology Facility Ad Hoc Committee, which is an interesting group of people. Carol and I represent you all, and then we have Dr. David Martin, who's a retired infectious disease doctor, and Dan Yankoff, who is Reynolds Yankoff, and
Judge Phillips.
Judge T.J. Phillips. And so we had, our first meeting was organizational, but we had a round-robin conversation for about 45 minutes and kicked around a lot of ideas. And so I think that there's interest in pursuing getting more information to see whether there's a value to Grand Traverse County becoming a regional forensic pathology site. I've heard actually from some people in the community who are excited about that possibility, see a value to that for the community. We are sort of the regional center for lots of other things, so it sort of makes sense for us to perhaps take on that role. I was initially attracted to the idea because I saw it as a potential revenue stream. Don't have enough information to know yet if that's accurate, but we wouldn't pursue it if it were a drain. So we're at the start, but there's a lot of enthusiasm on the committee, and we're going to meet again. We're going to meet once a month, and so you'll know when those meetings are, and if you are interested, please come. And could I just ask a question about two other committees? I'm no longer on, I'm on the EDC, and I would just like to share that since we lost Jean, the EDC does not have a strong presence. I mean, Karen is doing a great job as record keeping, but there's no longer a leader, organizational leader for the EDC. And I believe the Brownfield, I'm not on it, but I think they're similarly situated. There isn't a, beyond the chair of the board, there isn't a director or an oversight kind of person. And I'm just concerned because Brownfield and EDC are two pretty important initiatives for this community. And so I just want to challenge us and administration to look at, what is the solution for that going to be? I think that there was a hope that maybe, I don't know, someone was going to spring up or something was going to present itself as a salvation for that lack. But there's, we're not meeting this month for EDC. The explanation is, well, we don't really have anything to talk about, but that in itself is a little troubling because we should always have something to talk about. So any entity flourishes with proper leadership, and I think it diminishes with a lack of leadership. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if the city wants to partner with us. I don't know what we can do, but I just want to put it out there that I see cracks in the foundation, and I think we need to work to find a solution. And I don't know, Ron could probably speak to Brownfield. I haven't been there in months, so.
We had our last meeting canceled, our upcoming one we'll be having.
Okay.
And we're working with a firm that is taking over Gene's spot, so.
I think Nate's got something to add to that.
Well, the contract with ECT is being worked through, and they are going to manage the day-to-day aspects of Brownfield at this point, but that's the Brownfield board's decision. They chose that group. They just had a couple issues to work through with the contract, but that contract is, they are providing the service currently for Brownfield. For planning, I would welcome a larger discussion as well. I had a conversation with Bob Fudge and Matt McCauley from Networks Northwest. I would like to have some input from some commissioners specific to what direction we want to go in terms of a planning concept. What services do we need for Grand Traverse County specific to master plan review? And I know that Bob Fudge from the Planning Commission, he would like to have audience with somebody as well. So if we could get at least one commissioner or two to sit down with myself and Mr. Fudge to talk about the future of planning as well, I would appreciate that.
Tom?
Yeah, well, the meeting you're referring to that's canceled for EDC is tomorrow morning, right? Or what would have been tomorrow morning? Yeah, okay. So I noticed that earlier, and I kind of wondered about that. I'd be interested in the planning discussion with Networks Northwest as well, because I'm on that board, so.
Okay. All right, I have a couple of notices. We have on here that there will be an Open Meetings Act and Board Member Basics training, and that's not just for the county board or the other boards that relate to the county, but that's open to township boards and villages and things like that. May 23rd at 9 o'clock, right here, I believe, in the training room, probably. I will also be absent the first meeting in June, June 6th. Yes, sir.
Can we go back to,
Go back.
our emails getting out to all the, because we've got a lot of new members on boards
They should be.
about this training.
Okay. I can speak to Chris Kramer about that and make
Because
sure.
I know the Veterans Affairs Boards has new members. I
Yes.
mean, how many ad hoc committees have we been on lately where we've appointed new members?
We have appointed lots of new people who should have the
And it'd be perfect training for
training.
them to go to.
Mhm. I will talk to Chris Kramer about that. Okay, thank you. I will be absent for the meeting for June 6th, and I don't think I'll be able to be at the public forum for our last few candidates, June 7th. I'm going to go to a class called County Leadership Institute. It's put on by National Association of Counties. I was chosen by MAC, Michigan Association of Counties, as the one commissioner this year from Michigan who is going. Only 28 county leaders from the entire nation are going this year. And so I will be gone that week to go to that institute and come back with all kinds of good stuff. So, hopefully. So I am sorry that I will miss the public forum for our candidates, but I will be there at 8 o'clock the next morning for that last round of interviews. On that note, I got a call yesterday from James Petrino. We have one candidate who has some family issues, family medical issues. He cannot travel here for the first round of interviews. It is our first interview on Wednesday, the 16th of May. And he has asked if he can Skype for that interview. James has a laptop that will plug in right here. We would see the candidate. It's Mr. Todd. It's Greg Todd. We would see him on all the screens. I checked with our videographer in the booth. He has a dedicated spot where the public would be able to see that on TV as well. So yes, Cheryl, I need to know how you guys feel about that.
I was involved in several presidential searches while I was on the board at the college, and it was not uncommon to have initial round interviews done by Polycom, Skype, whatever, because it's costly. We were interviewing people from all over the country, and to have to fly them in and put them up and whatever, I've interviewed via this mode. It's called modern technology. You can see the person, they can see you, you can check their mannerisms. I mean, courts of law allow people to testify by this matter. So I don't know why we would have a higher standard than a court of law.
Dan?
This candidate lives in Michigan.
No, he does not. He lives
No?
in Maryland.
Okay, oh, I see, okay.
It's Mr. Todd, Greg Todd.
Oh, okay, good. Well, why not do everybody that way? To save everybody money.
I don't think we want to do it that
If they
way.
asked, I mean, this is an extraordinary, it sounds like an extraordinary circumstance.
It is. He really wanted to come, but this is something that he
I think
has
most
to be
of them
home
would want to
for.
come here. I mean, we're footing the bill anyway from the company,
Yeah.
so.
I think it's important that they come here.
I think most of them would want to be here.
And meet us, and, and he wanted to, he can't do it. So I told James that I would need to check with you all and make sure that that's okay with you, that we're going to do one.
Can we get it tested and all that before the?
I spoke to the gentleman in the booth, and I talked to Sarah, and he is our first interview on Wednesday. And James is going to come early, make sure that he's up, he's ready, he's there, we're not going to have any technical issues. Yes.
Because otherwise I don't have a big issue with it. I mean, because it could be the perfect candidate for us, and just because of family situation or something.
It'd be hard to know, though. I mean, it's hard to evaluate.
Well, you'll still see them.
Well, that's
You'll see the person.
only the first interview. I mean, if they make the cut, then they're going to come to the public one, then they're going to come to the second round. I mean,
I'd hate to eliminate someone from the running completely
because of a life circumstance.
Because of a life circumstance. I mean, it's not that they're, just unwilling to come. Something came up and they can't, and so we don't have to vote, but by a nod of heads, where Sunny says no. Yes, nod your head yes if you're okay, because you were nodding, you were going this way.
Well, it's just a rattle, one way or
You're
the
just
other.
rattling around, okay. So
I'm nodding yes, too.
you are, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, then I will call James later on and let him know that. Okay, we do have a closed session.
Did you want to mention about Friday in the parking lot? Are you aware of that?
Is there something going on Friday?
Yeah,
in the
there
parking
is.
lot?
There,
Wow.
the employee recognition team has been working
Oh.
hard to do Quattro de Mayo, not Cinco de Mayo. What is Quattro? Four?
Four.
I'm sorry, I took German in college.
I did hear about this, I forgot, yes.
So Quattro de Mayo, they are going to bring in a food truck, specialize in tacos, so they'll have tacos, it'll be for the employees, and it's going to be a fun event.
What time?
It's going to be at noon.
Awesome.
Wow, good.
I'll go there right after the 90 over 90
Me
brunch
too.
is Friday.
Yep,
You're
10
gonna-
to
10 to noon.
10 to noon.
So we'll go have brunch with the
With the old
90 over
folks?
90, and then we'll come have some tacos.
Ole.
Ooh, okay.
We ought to have a special thing where employees get to throw tacos at the commissioners.
Get a dunk tank
What?
for a commissioner.
Okay,
Okay,
I would do it.
yeah. It would be fun.
We could,
Or a dunk tank, yeah.
Dunk tanks are a lot better in July and August than they are this time of
It's
year,
a little
guys.
chilly.
I've been there, done
And if
that.
anybody would like to throw tacos at me, I actually love tacos, so that's fine. That's fine, too.
Remember Gallagher?
Just not, it's nachos that get people in trouble.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough. All right. I will make a motion that we go into closed session for a strategy and negotiation session connected with the negotiation of collective bargaining agreements pursuant to MCL 15.268C.
I second it.
Okay? Roll call vote, please. Rolling. You gotta be
Wheelock.
quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Gorfulet.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Lathrop.
Yeah.
Johnson.
Yes.
Klaus. Crawford.
Yes.
Do we expect to make a decision coming out of this session?
No. No?
maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, there might be. There might be.
End of the meeting.
Yeah.
It's always nice to tell the people whether or not we're going to make a
Yeah,
decision.
whether or not they might want to stick around. out of here. I have kids walking in this direction because they have nowhere to go. Where's Sonny? Here he is.
Do we need
There
a
he
break
is.
before we continue for the next hour?
Madam Chairman, I move to come out of closed session.
Support.
I second it.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Gorfulet. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Need a motion?
We need a
Whoops.
motion authorizing council
For it.
to negotiate labor contracts as outlined in closed session. Support.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we are adjourned. Thank you.